In this video, you will learn how to use the Voice API from ElevenLabs with a Python codebase.
So let's do this. Hello, this is Marco speaking.
Recently, I've been hearing this voice a lot on social media platforms.
So I decided to investigate about it, and I found out that ElevenLabs has this voice available as a service API. So today we're going to update the AI voice assistant that we developed in previous videos to use this famous AI voice. But before we proceed, if you like this kind of content, just give me a thumbs up, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you can learn more about these AI integrations. And never forget that
The more you learn, the better you become, and more value you can provide.
So let's do this. Okay, great. So in order to use the ElevenLabs API, the first thing that we need to do is to create an account on ElevenLabs website. So here we are on elevenlabs.io. So you will need to create an account if you don't have an account. In my case, I already have an account. So basically I'm going to connect with using my Google account. And here I am on my account. Then here on the left side we go to our account, and then we click on the name, and then you go to profile plus API key. So here we can see some profile settings. We can see our email and our API key. So this is the API key that we're gonna need on our code base. So we copy it and put on your code base. So in my case, I'm going to the code base and add this to a .env file. Okay, great. So this is the backend code that we developed previously in the previous videos for our AI voice assistant. So in order to use the ElevenLabs API, the first thing that I'm going to do is to update the .env file. So here I'm gonna add the new ElevenLabs API key, which is this one. Perfect. Now what we're going to do, so previously we created this file, this service, which receives the text and then it returns an object from the AWS Poly API. But now we're going to replace this to the ElevenLabs service. So back to the assistant service layer. So here we can see that in our code base we are transcoding the audio that we receive from front end, and then we receive the text from the user, and then we convert audio to text from the user, and then we send the text to the LLM model. Oh, sorry, let me fix this. We send the code base to the text to the LLM model, and then we send the text that we receive from the LLM model to the voice generator. So here we're going to replace this to the ElevenLabs API. So when we go here to the audio generation service, we're going to create a new one to use the ElevenLabs API. So I'm gonna call it ElevenLabs Audio Generation Service. Perfect. So I'm also going to attach the documentation for you to take a look on how to use the API from ElevenLabs. So basically it's going to be a REST API, and then I'm also going to reuse some of the code base that we created previously. For this we're going to need the requests library from Python. We're going to need the OS library to read the .env variable, which is the ElevenLabs API. And we're also going to use this function that we created previously, which is basically to create a unique temporary file path in our machine. So basically we read the TMP folder from current machine, and then we append a unique name using UID and then some suffix for you. Basically, this is the utility function that we created for generating unique file paths in our current machine. So we're going to use this to create the file which is going to contain the generated audio from ElevenLabs. Perfect. So after doing this, what we need to do, we need to create a function to return the API key from ElevenLabs, which is the ElevenLabs API key that we defined in our .env file. Perfect. So the next thing that we need to do is to create a function to return all the voice IDs from ElevenLabs. So we can actually get the ID from the voice that we want to use. In my case, I want to use a voice called Adam. Test 1, 2, 3. Let me see.
Test 123.
Yeah, so this is the voice that I want to use, which is called Adam. So in order to use this voice, what we need to do, we need to find the ID for this voice. So here I created the function get all voice IDs to see the voice ID for the Adam's voice. So let's make a test here. If name equals main, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to call the function get all voice IDs. But first we need to populate this environment variable, and we also created previously the code base to fill all the environment variables, which is this project config. So basically here I'm configuring the application using the .env library. So basically whenever we call this setup app config, we're calling the load.env to load all the environment variables from the .env file. We're also configuring these environment variables here for the OpenAI library for the LLM model. So let's go back here to our new service, and then I'm going to import from project config, import setup app config. So here we're going to call the setup app config to load the environment variables, and then we're going to print all the voice IDs from ElevenLabs. Perfect. So as you can see, these are the voice IDs available in their API. So the one that I want to use is called Adam, which is Adam, this one. So this is the voice that I want to use. So now what we need to do, I'm going to create a similar function to what we did before using Amazon Poly, but now I'm going to use the ElevenLabs API. So this is the code base basically. So we need to convert the text to audio. So basically we're making an API call to the ElevenLabs API. So we need to pass these parameters, and let me set up the URL. So this is the voice ID. The voice ID that I'm using here is basically the ID from Adam. I'm gonna pass this actually as a parameter, voice ID, which is this one here. And then we pass the URL, which is the api.elevenlabs.io, version 1, text to speech, and then we pass the voice ID. In this case, I'm gonna use the voice ID from called Adam, and this is the ID for the voice. Perfect. So in this case, actually, I'm making some small changes. I'm not returning the object from the API call. I'm just returning the file from the current machine, which contains the saved file. So basically we are reading we're making the call to the API, and then we're saving the audio file that we received from the API into the local machine. And then here we are returning the path to the file in the local machine. And that's pretty much it. And that's it. What we need to do now, let's go back to our assistant service layer, and then we're going to replace the last step, which is to generate the audio. So here we have the AI text reply that we received from the OpenAI API. Now we're going to load from audio handling dot ElevenLabs API, import convert text to audio. Perfect. So now let's call the API from ElevenLabs. And then here, instead of receiving the object which contains the data, we're actually going to return directly the generated audio file path, which is this one. So then we just return it. Perfect. Now let's test our application. Okay, great. So this is the front end that we created previously. So what I did so far is I started the front end and I connected the front end with a local version of our backend. So the backend is running using the ElevenLabs API. So let's make a quick test here. So I'm gonna say here, hello, Who are you?
Greetings. I am an AI created to assist and engage in conversation with you. How can I help you today?
And that's it. So this is the model working from ElevenLabs API, and this model is actually quite powerful. If I start using different languages that the model was trained, we can actually use the model in different languages without making any changes on the code base. So for example, if I start speaking in Portuguese, it should be able to recognize it as well. For example, olá, quem é você? Fale-me um pouco mais sobre você.
Olá, eu sou um assistente de inteligência artificial projetado para ajudar e conversar com você. Posso fornecer informações, responder perguntas ou apenas bater um papo. Estou aqui para ajudar no que você precisar. Como posso ajudá-lo hoje?
As you can see, the model is actually able to respond in many different languages as long as the model was trained on that language. I'm gonna attach a link for you in the description so you can see the different languages that the models were trained. The OpenAI model, the Whisper model, which is actually translating my voice to text, and the final model, which generates the text to voice, which is actually played here in the browser. And that's pretty much it. Now we know how to use the ElevenLabs API using a Python codebase. I hope you liked it, and I see you in the next time.